Euromaxx highlights. And here's your host, Karin Helmstedt.
Greetings from Berlin and welcome to our highlights edition. That is our pick of the plums from the past week, and here's a quick look at what's in store. Ceramic statement, British artist Barnaby Barford and his porcelain figurines. Great Games, a Hamburg software studio claims Germany's top games prize. And Beer Brouhaha, German women brewers are showing the men how it's done. But first, we're starting off with some works of art that may well make you think twice and perhaps even look 3 times. British artist Barnaby Barford combines typical dry British humour with some fine work in porcelain. His works are shown all over the globe, but we managed to catch up with him in London for a chat about his take on what he creates.
A magnificent frame to reflect your image. Pride is the name of this mirror, meant to represent one of the 7 deadly sins. Porcelain flowers, printed with images of paper money, are the expression of avarice. In these works by Barnaby Barford, the observer becomes part of the artwork. Their decorative forms conceal something more profound. Wrath is a colourful explosion of red and yellow, while white ceramic flowers symbolize sloth.
I wanted to explore what the 7 deadly sins meant in the beginning of the 21st century. So they've been around since Pope Gregory wrote them down in sort of 600 AD. So without the threat of eternal damnation, I wanted to see if they were still important in our society.
Barnaby Barford's works tell stories. There's a lot of hanky-panky going on in this love nest. And even on his wedding day, this groom is already making eyes at another woman. Barford transforms kitschy porcelain figures into attractive yet macabre works with an ironic twist.
By bringing a sort of sense of humour and irony to the work, I think it allows people to engage with it on a different level than they would if it was sort of deadly serious and hammering a sort of message home.
At his studio in London, Barford cuts up porcelain figurines he finds in junk shops or on the internet. Then he pieces them together to create something different. But there's method behind the seeming madness. Barford always has a very clear idea in mind, and his works poke fun at society.
These objects are meant for something completely different. You know, they're meant to sort of celebrate the sort of romantic, the chocolate box ideology of life, and in a way I'm using them to sort of celebrate our foibles and our frailties, really.
He's made a name for himself with installations like this one, called The Battle of Trafalgar. In 2008, his figures even became the protagonists of an animated film for British television. It recounts the tragic love story of a pretty girl from high society and a lower-class boy. Barford is a master of his craft. The 3 Graces is a favourite motif in art history. Barford recreates it with pop stars, like Britney Spears. One person in 3 different situations. He did the same with Amy Winehouse and Grace Jones. He's making these sculptures for a solo exhibition in the US this fall. Barford's works are sold by David Gill, who owns a gallery in London.
They're very varied. Many of them are from the contemporary art world, very serious contemporary art collectors. Some of them are really young collectors.
Barnaby Barford is successful internationally, but in many ways his art is typically British.
a very British side. It's the way of looking at a subject in a satirical way, of being able to make fun of it, but also be kind of deadly serious about it at the same time.
And his art does just that. It does away with conventional logic and gets people talking.
Well, if you're a computer games fan, then you've probably heard a good deal of talk about the German games developer Daedalic. And any hype has indeed been justified, because they just won this year's prize for Best German PC Game right here in the capital. So we dropped by their headquarters in Hamburg to get a cyber tour of sorts.
The game Chaos on Deponia delivers what it promises. Rufus, the hero, sets out to save his planet Deponia. He gets in a spin, has to solve a few tricky problems, and ends up falling in love as well. Daedalic is the name of the Hamburg company which developed the adventure game. Carsten Fichtelmann embarked on an adventure of his own when he set up the company 6 years ago. He invested in the adventure game genre at a time of dwindling popularity.
For us, it's about telling a story. That's why we opted to make adventure games. We relied on our gut. People said the trend was over, but it wasn't. People said the adventure game genre was dead, but we knew that there were a lot of potential customers. We just had to find them with the right games. We've done that in a sustainable way with a lot of our games. Right now, it's Chaos on Deponia.
Daedalic places a lot of emphasis on the graphics. Art director Simone Kerstetten is responsible for developing the characters. She draws them by hand. Similarities with real people can't be ruled out. When drawing faces, whether angry, happy or irritated, she often uses reality as a reference.
There's a lot of me in Deponia. I worked on almost all the characters. In a sense, you always draw a bit of yourself when you draw the figures. It goes into the facial expressions, the postures and gestures.
The third part of the Deponia series is under development. Illustrator Fabia Sobel is working on the backgrounds. Once the scenery is ready, the figures are transposed onto it and animated. It's similar to classic movie animation. A team can spend a year producing a game. 35 developers, graphic artists and animators worked on the whole Deponia series. After the success of the first part, the developers set out to make the following episodes even more accessible. A lot has changed since their first game. Edna Escapes was about a girl falsely locked up in a mental asylum. Graphics and characters have become more sophisticated since then.
Back about 10 years.
A good adventure game has to be a good mix of everything. Dialogue, fancy, and carefully crafted animations. The background has to be good. It should keep you occupied. Our animations aren't the most elaborate, but we do a lot of things people like.
The entertainment software industry runs a regulatory panel which checks games and gives them an age rating. That covers 1,300 games a year.
What we're seeing in the game sector at the moment is a trend toward the shooters. That means action-packed adult games. We also see a trend toward license granting. That means we're seeing FIFA games. We're seeing race games sold under license. And we're seeing more and more casual games, games which test the skill of gaming newcomers using apps or smartphones and tablets.
Computer games are a growing industry in Germany. About 1 out of 3 people in Germany say they play more than once a month. Chaos on Deponia is Daedalic's most successful game at the moment. It appeals to adolescents, adults, comic fans and adventure gamers.
The makers of Deponia have understood that the soul of a game counts for a lot. You really need great backgrounds, good characters, and lots of humor. And they've been doing that right for many, many years.
Carsten Fittelmann and his team are now working on a new role-playing game. But Daedalic is staying faithful to the adventure genre. Their next game, The Night of the Rabbit, is due for release at the end of May.
Das Abenteuer kann beginnen.
Well, working with a family member can indeed be a challenge or even an adventure for some, but we're about to meet two brothers from France who made it work, and that is almost an understatement. After 15 years in the business, Ronan and Erwan Bouroullec from Brittany are now a well-established team on the product design scene, and their work is being honoured with a major retrospective in Paris.
The Museum of Decorative Arts, located in the Louvre's western wing, is currently hosting a show featuring Erwan and Ronan Bouroullec. It's called Momentané, which translates as fleeting moments. The brothers inspect the arrangement.
It gives me lots of pleasure, and at the same time it terrifies me. It's a great opportunity, but I'm not much more self-confident as a result.
Je suis pas beaucoup plus sûr de moi.
Un grand plaisir en fait à montrer des choses à.
It's a chance for us to show our stuff to people who may not be specialists, but are actually the ones who the work is meant for.
Globalement, les gens à qui on dédie notre travail.
The show covers about 1,000 square meters in the museum and will last 6 weeks. The Bouroullec brothers also had a say in how their work is displayed. 15 years worth of their work is here, from tableware designed for a lessee to the famous quilt sofa and this 12-meter tall 3D wall.
This exhibition plays on contrasts. For example, we created this wall curtain for the Danish firm Kvadrat. It's very technical and industrial, yet delicate. We set it against a rug woven in Pakistan, using ancient techniques barely changed over the centuries.
Whether limited edition or mass-produced items, the approach is the same.
Quand un projet est dessiné,
when we've sketched out a process and it starts to take on a life of its own, we know that bit by bit we'll have to reduce its elements. The objects are made of very little material and they have a minimum form.
Nature has inspired some of their most famous creations, including the vegetal chair and these algae-inspired elements for Vitra, which were featured at the Museum of Modern Art in New York.
On avait un projet en tête auquel personne ne croyait, qu'on avait dessiné.
We already had this project in mind, but nobody else really believed in it. Once the sketches were done, we arranged an exhibition in Cologne. We used the budget for the exhibition to produce the prototypes for algae elements. They're small parts that you can join together to form a partition. Now it's our most successful product, with more than 8 million sold so far.
Notre plus grand succès en termes de nombre, parce que je crois qu'il y a à peu près 8 millions de pièces qui ont été fabriquées.
The brothers have about 20 projects going on at the same time in their Paris studio. The two siblings don't always see eye to eye, but their intensive collaboration generally generates an innovative product.
Sometimes we have a collaboration, sometimes a real confrontation. But I think our approach allows us to contemplate a project from the inside and outside both, and to talk it over together.
French journalist Michel Champenois and the show's curator Dominique Fauré have followed the Bouroullec brothers from the start. They're not surprised that their careers have gone international.
C'est une de leurs grandes forces.
Their strength lies in their remaining true to themselves and preserving their own style, but still following all the dictates of commercialism. Their creations are modern and topical. These systems for dividing up space are a response to our current problems, to apartments that are too small, for instance.
Now the talented designer brothers can pick and choose their jobs. They enjoy taking on new and different challenges.
Actuellement, on dessine le lustre d'entrée.
Right now, we're at work on a chandelier for the foyer of the Palace of Versailles. It's going to be installed in November, and will keep the palace continually lit. And we've just completed some furniture for the University of Copenhagen's new building, furniture for the students to use.
Erwan dreams of designing a sailboat someday, maybe even as his next project. But the current exhibition will be running through early September at the Louvre.
Well, back to Germany, which is renowned as the land of beer making, with most master brewers being men. But that is changing now, as more and more women are entering the field and proving that they too deserve a toast to their achievements. And while recognition may not come that easy, you certainly can't deny the product, as our reporter found out.
A common image of beer is of men raising mugs of the frothy brew. And to those who say there's nothing less ladylike than beer, well, times are changing. Friederike Strate of Detmold is living proof that babes can brew too. Together with her sister Sylvia, she's part of a team that runs a thriving brewery.
I never really thought about it. Gender is irrelevant. I think brewing beer is the best trade there is. I love our brewery and our beer. I grew up here.
Friederike is the fifth generation of her family to brew. The small traditional business employs only 30 people. It doesn't advertise. Traditionally, the beer was made for regional consumption, until recently. Now it's in demand across Germany. An online beer tasters club crowned the Tusnelda Brew their Beer of the Year.
As a mid-sized firm, it's super important for us because it's hard to compete with all the commercial beers on TV. The market pressure just keeps on growing.
Today, men dominate the brewing industry, but that didn't used to be the case at all. In medieval times, brewing was traditionally a woman's job. Only the monks in their monasteries competed with the female-made ales.
Beer and women always went together because the women had to take care of food and drink. Beer was included. Even in ancient Egypt, the Babylonians and the Teutons, it was the same.
Mass production of beer only began with the onset of industrialization, when men took over. But today, singular, flavorful beers are back in demand. And that's exactly what Esther Isak has on sale at Hamburger Bierland. The inventory includes 300 types from all over the world. People call the former interpreter the beer queen, because she knows just the right beer for every drinker.
Women come here looking for a special taste experience, a gourmet experience. Men are simply thirsty.
That's why men aren't really welcome when Barley's Angels meet. It's a 5,000-member club for female connoisseurs of brew worldwide. Esther Isak founded a German branch last year.
What does this beer tell us? Is lychee on the list? No? Add lychee.
Every trace of taste counts. Beer is an unexplored universe in its own right.
I've always liked drinking beer, but this isn't a typical Becks or whatever. I don't like those. Then I came here, and this was a little paradise.
It's a great idea. As a woman, you've got so many drinks to choose from, and sometimes you're uncertain about trying beer.
Barley's Angels is a growing phenomenon in Germany and elsewhere in the world. A growing group of ladies who want to have their say about brews to savor.
We're not working against men. We're just saying, hello, there are ladies here. Your beer would improve if you'd ask them what they like, because we make up 50% of the potential market, but no one seems to care about us.
Barley's Angels want to change that and bring women to the fore when it comes to assessing the best that beer has to offer.
Well, Berlin's famous gallery weekend has started here in the German capital, where art lovers can take in more than 300 exhibitions, lectures and parties of all kinds. It's become a major part of the city's increasingly booming gallery scene, which is now attracting artists and professionals from all walks of the business in droves.
Gallery owner Michael Kevenig has arrived. He's just moved his entire gallery from Cologne to Berlin. It's a big step for him. His artwork is being kept in temporary storage here. The car, too. It's a work by South Korean artist Kim Soo-ja.
The car stands for the hopes which I have in this city. And I'm very glad that the artist made the car available for my journey, so to speak.
Work is still very much underway here at his new gallery in the historical Happe Palais in Berlin's Mitte district. It's set to open later this year. Kevenig takes another look through the rooms that will soon be the venue for his art. It's a bold investment in the future and a sign of faith in Berlin.
I think that Berlin is one of the most creative places in the world at the moment. It might not be Hong Kong or Singapore in terms of the concentration of money, but money can take the express passing through Berlin. It does stop here occasionally.
This unassuming street is packed with galleries. It's a magnet for rich international art collectors and artists alike.
Berlin has outranked New York. Berlin is the preeminent location for galleries and art. That means artists have to have had an exhibition here.
With more than its fair share of galleries, Auguststrasse in central Berlin is also a key address. Michael Fuchs found a special place to exhibit art. This former Jewish school for girls. Around 300 pupils attended lessons here until it was shut down by the Nazis in 1942.
This used to be the school hall. It's 7 meters high, so the room is very well lit. It's a very attractive space.
These pictures are by Andreas Golder. He's one of a small group of artists whose work the gallery often exhibits. And this is the artist at work in his studio in an outlying district of Berlin. Golder was born in Russia. He came to study in the German capital and ended up staying.
Of course, one is influenced by the city. I don't paint the TV tower or courtyard scenes like Zille did. But when you walk through the city, you see various shades of color, and that inevitably turns up in my work.
Golder has already had several exhibitions in other European cities, but his artwork is especially sought after in Berlin. So what draws artists here from all over the world?
Basically, Berlin was able to revive its creative tradition after the fall of the wall. With their policy of destroying art, the Nazis had caused a hemorrhage of Berlin's creative energy. That returned after the wall came down.
One of the city's best-known galleries is Eigen and Art. It has just reopened after extensive renovation work. Owner Gerd Harry Lübke came to Berlin from Leipzig more than 20 years ago. He's one of the most successful figures in the Berlin art scene.
The difficult thing isn't being successful, it's maintaining momentum. When you've been in the business as long as we have, then you have to know how to keep that momentum going. That's the most difficult thing for everyone, and we've managed it so far, and we're quite alone out there with that success.
Lübke's success and that of the other galleries add to the importance of Berlin as an art capital. And all the signs are there that the creative energy of the city's artists and gallerists is a long way from running out.
Well, that brings us to the end of this edition of our Euromaxx highlights. We hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, all the best from Berlin and auf Wiedersehen.